What the heck is up, my Atlanteans? Hello. As you can tell from the title, I will be turning my original Ghoulia Yelps into the chase version of the Ghoulia Yelps vinyl figure from the Monster High vinyl series. This is a really big and exciting project for me just because I haven't done anything this big before, not with doll customizing at least. I'm really excited to be turning this original Ghoulia Yelps into a 100% full-on art doll. Now, I've never done tattoos, and I've only ever done face repaints on that one doll that one time. Redesigning the prints and details to fit the doll turned out to be a little tricky. There was a lot more space to work on, but at the same time, as much as we love the sculpting, there are a lot of crevices and creases to work over. I just decided to really exaggerate the boldness of the lines and details. I already know it's not going to turn out exactly as I'm planning it to be, so don't come at me after seeing this video, lol. I feel like this will be just a fun project, and I'm super excited to create my first full art doll and see the outcome. Woo! So let's get on with it, shall we? Alrighty-roo, everyone. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is dunk her head in some boiling water. Her hair is actually Kanekalon, so it could possibly like melt or like break off. So maybe give it a few minutes to cool down before you keep her head in there for too long. I left her in there for about 30 seconds to a minute, and then I attempt to rip her head off. To be safe, I make sure that I have a towel with me to hold on to her steaming hot head. Now we'll be wanting to use both her head and her body for this project. Both of them will be important components to this project, but first let's start with the head. Then I take out a palette and my 100% acetone, and I take a Q-tip and I use an upward scooping motion to remove the face paint. It could get a little messy, but that's totally fine. It'll all come off at some point. And just for good measure, I'm going to be putting some acetone on a tissue paper, and I'm just going to sweep her face a little bit just to make sure I get all the nooks and crannies. And there is her amazing face sculpt again. And since I will be using the same hair that she has on right now, I'm going to want to protect her from the sealant. I'm just taking some tissue paper and some recycled plastic bag material, and I'm taping and pinning that to her head, just so it doesn't like move around or get too crazy, you know? Then I'm going to plop her head onto the end of a paintbrush. And this will be the sealant that I'm going to be using. And I'll give her 3 sprays to the face. Then here I'm going to be taking the lightest brown shade I have with my Derwent watercolors. And I'm going to start mapping her face out. And since it's essentially going to be the main theme for the entire doll, I'm just going to be creating this brain design happening all over her face as sporadically as possible. No rhyme or reason, just anywhere I could possibly put it. Now here I'm going to be outlining her lips. I want it to look as close to the original Ghoulia doll as possible. Honestly, I feel like I shouldn't even have removed the lips paint just because it was kind of already perfect and it was already there. But you know what? This isn't a bad experiment anyway. Now I'm going to be using my black Derwent watercolor pencil to hardline all of the brain details. Then after giving her another layer of sealant, I'm going to take a wet black watercolor pencil and I'm going to re-outline all of the details again. Next, I start putting in the details. She's going to have cherries all over her face and body, so it actually took a lot of trial and error, but I start out by using a red watercolor pencil that I realized later on that actually peels off quite easily, so I go over it one more time with some acrylic for both the cherries and the cherry leaves. It didn't turn out too bad, actually. Then with her lips, I'm going to be using the exact same red acrylic paint that I used on the cherries. I'm going to try to replicate it as best as I can as the original Ghoulia's lips, just because that was what we were kind of aiming for anyway. And her face up is all done. For putting her head back onto her body, I decided it's a good idea to style her hair first. So first I'm going to unravel her hair. And luckily this was also a first wave version of Ghoulia, so her front bangs were already separated. So I'm just going to gather that and spray her hair with some warm water and fabric softener, and I'm going to brush all the knots out of her hair. Then for her front bangs, I'm going to get them as wet and straight and clean as possible. I'm going to take this blue elastic band. It seems to camouflage into her hair anyway, and I'm going to style her hair into her iconic side bangs. Then for the main components of her top half, I'm going to be taking this Spectra, I think, Sports Day headband, and I'm going to be painting it like that lime green color that the original Ghoulia had. And to make the paint stick effectively, I did give the headband a quick spray of sealant, and I used the paint but watered down, and I just pile on the layers. Then next, I got her the glasses that come with the Scarce version of Ghoulia, and the earrings that go with the Scarce version of Ghoulia. And then I assemble her. I just feel like I was lucky enough that the vinyl version of the toy had already pre-existing accessories with her, so it wasn't too hard to find all the components that I need for this. And here she is all done, looking super snazzy. So for the body, we're gonna wanna prep it for its tattoos. So the first thing we're gonna wanna do is separate its limbs and start carving away at the product lines. These product lines usually happen in between the plastic mold. So when it's all done and they take the plastic out of the mold, they are left with some of these markings, which isn't a really big problem. It's just something that happens. Then next I take a sanding block and I do my best to completely extinguish those product markings. However, I did realize it was quite hard to get into the small areas, so what did I do next? I cut her legs off. The first thing I decide to do though is buff the crap out of her crotch with the sanding block. Look how smooth she looks. And then I take the sanding block again to the legs. This time it's working a lot better. I'm really getting into all the areas that I need. Then I give it all a good layer of sealant and I let them dry. Now I'm going to be mapping out the brain detail on the torso. And just like the head, no rhyme or reason, just gonna do my best to do what I did with the design and sporadically add the details anywhere I can. Then I'm gonna go back in with my watercolor pencil and outline all the markings I've drawn onto her. I also wanted to add some detail onto her back as well. I didn't want to leave any space left behind. Right, Mattel? Then for arguably the most difficult part of this entire project is writing the letters onto her stomach. Now I'm taking in this red watercolor pencil to mark in the letters. It's really hard to see, but it does say Ghoul Genius. So it looks like I actually forgot to record it, but actually I took the black watercolor pencil again and I went around the Ghoul Genius part of her stomach and I outlined the letters and filled it in between. Now I'm doing my best to make those red letters pop a little bit more. Acrylic is always the way to go. It is here when I realize that the letters don't actually look like the letters I'm trying to write. So I actually take my X-Acto knife and I just scribble it all out and I remove as much paint as possible just to make it look as clean as possible when I get the letters back on there. And she's looking creeperific. What the heck? Okay, so I forgot to put in the part with the legs as well, but I basically did the exact same as the body and the head. a few layers of sealant later, and their legs are all done. So I decide to reattach them with some red elastic. This is the first time I've ever pieced together a Monster High doll, so please bear with me. But basically, it's just a thing going through a few holes. Her legs are still a little wobbly bobbly, but I'm still proud of her. I'm pretty proud of myself. Like, that looks pretty great. It's a little better than how it was before. And now I'm just gonna reassemble her arms. And now that both pieces are done, I'm going to blow dry the inside of Ghoulia's head to soften the plastic a little bit. Then I'm going to jam the mechanism into the bitch's head. And I'm doing my best to be careful with all those layers of sealant. Her face is prone to cracking, so to prevent that, I try to work as gently as possible. And finally, she's all freaking done, y'all. Alrighty, y'all, that is everything for this video. Please let me know what you guys think of her in the comments below. OMG, she was so much fun to make, though. Please like and subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll see y'all on the flip side. Bye-bye.